different. Supposedly, what happened when the flood occurred is the planet, the continent broke up into the seven that we have now and shifted. The tectonic plates shifted and sort of created the world that we have now that we understand. And so, how much of that I believe, I don't know, but it's interesting reading, and I'm doing the research for a novel that I'm writing where the setting is that world. And so, so I wanted to get a feel for what things might have been like during that time. And
so you're doing real-world research using ChatGPT and artificial intelligence to get a quick summary of history for your fictional books.
Yeah, that's correct.
What's the general theme in your fictional books?
Well, this particular novel that I'm working on concerns an angel who comes out of heaven to solve or investigate the murder of Abel, the first murder. So when Cain killed Abel, the Bible just tells us he killed him, and then boom, he went on with his life, right? God marked him, and he went off to the land of Nod. So we don't have a whole lot of details, but several apocryphal books do kind of allude to some possibilities. And so I'm researching that. I'm reading the apocryphal books. I'm doing some AI research using ChatGPT to get a feel for what the world might have been like, assuming that this story is true, and God created the earth in 6 days, Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, Cain and Abel. If all that's true, what was the world like then? And so I'm doing the research to figure out what that is, and including those elements as best I can into the world building of the story.
As a Christian, what perspectives do you have, politics aside, on the way things are going? Any observations that you have a burning desire to share about media, the things that people consider to be normal, fashion, attire? I gave you a card. You've checked out the channel, and then you said that you're aware also of, we'll get into that, the demonic with regards to the celestial events. So we'll start with, what are your observations on where we are right now?
Well, I think, in terms of reality, we live in a broken world. There's a lot of brokenness. Families are broken. People are broken in their spirits. There's a lot of brokenness, and you can call it sin. Bottom line is, we all know that there are things that are not right. There's some dysfunctionality in our relationships, in our families, in our communities, in our churches, in our businesses, in our government. And everybody's got an opinion on how to fix that. But in my opinion, none of the man-centered programs, none man-centered solutions are going to be good enough to fix what is broken in our world. It's a God-sized problem. And
what type of solutions would God need to deliver the world?
Well, He's already done it. That's the thing. He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross, usher in His kingdom, and that's the solution. That doesn't mean that the world is perfect. Doesn't mean that the world is going to be perfect anytime soon. But what it does mean is God is in the process of redeeming His creation, and that's a process. It's not an instantaneous thing. It's a process. It takes place over time, and when the time comes to consummate it and complete that process, that will be according to God's mind when that happens.
Real briefly, when I saw you, you said that you saw something in that theory that when the sun's active, that there's a rise in the demonic. What is your perception along those lines, or what are you noticing? Because I met you a few months ago, said there'd be a rise in crime, and then we are kind of seeing things explode, and so is the sun.
Yeah.
Have you made that connection?
I haven't done any research on it, so I don't really know. Basically, what I know about that is what you share with me, and I think it's interesting. So I can't deny it, I can't affirm it, but I think it is interesting. Assuming that the things you're saying are true about the solar flares and increase in murders and rapes and whatever. If there's a correlation there, there's certainly a very interesting correlation.
And then Alexander Chavinsky was the Russian who first discovered 100 years ago the war correlation, and then they locked him up for that. What do you think are the most important teachings of Jesus that are missing from either the media or I hear on the radio a lot, they talk about war, and those people this and those people that, if only they'll come, but they don't really talk about the teachings of Jesus. They don't really preach certain things on these radio shows. They just tend to kind of go round and round in circles. And if I don't want the pastor to be literal, maybe I can get something out of the radio show. But they never really want to address the actual literal racism, hatred issue going on.
Yeah.
What is your thought on that?
Well, the main point that Jesus taught, aside from, he is the king, the king of creation and his ushering in his kingdom, the main principles that he taught were love. Love your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with everything you have. If we all put that into practice, a lot of the brokenness that we see around us would fix itself. I'm a huge believer in the law of reaping and sowing, and this is something that people don't talk about. I'm not sure even people who do talk about it really understand what it means. Typically, people think that you reap what you sow means, well, if I punch you in the face, then I'm going to get punched in the face. Well, that may be an application of it, but that's not necessarily what it means. We go back to the agricultural era. When you planted seeds, whatever seeds you planted, you planted apple seeds, you grew apple seeds. You grew apples. You didn't grow lemons. You didn't grow oranges. You didn't grow watermelons. If you planted apple seeds, you grew apples. So how does that apply in the spiritual world? How does that apply in our lives? So if you're a bitter person and you walk around always complaining and grumbling and lashing out in anger at everyone you see over this, over that, what are you going to get in return? You're just going to get bitterness in return. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody you meet is going to be bitter toward you, but the bitterness in your heart produces more bitterness in your life.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
And it's just a never-ending cycle. So if you do that on the positive side, and you're a happy-go-lucky person, you treat people with respect and you're kind, then that's what you get back in return.
What's your exchanges been with customers in the times you've been here? Is it asking similar questions to me, or is it mostly asking about the book and fiction? There is a lot of fiction out there.
Yeah, great question. I do both fiction and nonfiction titles, and so I have probably an equal interest across the board.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I try to find out what people like to read. Are you more into fiction? Are you more into nonfiction? What do you think? And I match them with the book. And so, if they're a Christian and they say, well, I only read the Bible, or I only like Christian books. Then if they say they only like fiction and they like to read fantasy and or that kind of fiction story, well, then I have a fantasy series, and so I point them in that direction. So I just try to get people to talking and open up and engage with me. Once I do that, then I can get into a conversation with them. It's not a hard sales tactic. It's just having a conversation, find out what they like, see if I can match their interests with what I have.
I think the location's interesting because it's a grocery store.
Yeah.
And I've worked at a grocery store for many years, and then I got in trouble with the law, got thrown in jail for getting fallen into heroin, cocaine, and all that had to do with working in a negative environment like this, in which your labor is being taken for rent and you're basically a slave. And so the reason I brought that up is because I was curious if you ever get any curiosity, or because I feel that grocery workers need spirituality. People that work under fluorescent lights, people that work around food that's handled by others, strangers that have anger, rage. Same thing with like eating from grocery restaurants where the cooks are mad.
Yeah.
And so I have compassion for these folks because I can just psychically, telepathically know that they're struggling, and they may not have been treated right when they grew up, by their parents. And so they were pretty much thrust into fast food, and now fast food, OnlyFans, prostitution, human trafficking, this, that, and the other. It's very limited options that they have for these young people. And I'm able. So do you ever have people coming up to you or recognizing your spirit that work here, or do they pretty much put on a face of don't go there too deeply. That's because I get that with some people that they don't want to go down that route of knowing too much.
Yeah, you're talking about the workers.
It's an energy. It's almost non-silent. You can answer that. Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop this. So working in a grocery store, talking about these things in a grocery store, is there ever a curiosity that comes about from the people that work here?
Yeah.
That see you time and time again. They could see, like I said, I think people could respond subconsciously to the imagery on your books. You have fire coming down from the sky, basically.
Yeah.
And then you said you didn't know a lot about the solar flare. So what I'm saying to you is you can activate people through the imagery that you've chosen for your books, because you got my attention. Fire from the sky, you know, the world changing, God's wrath, storms, solar flares are always in the news now. Always.
Sure. Yeah. So there are employees that do take an interest in my books, and a lot of times, they do buy some of them. The interest is primarily in my story, my story as a Christian, and the take that I have on the biblical legends, the stories, the fictional stories in the biblical settings, and how those are developed. And so people do ask questions about that, and they want to know, are they Christian, are they non-Christian, are they anti-Christian?
What kind of are they asking about the giants, the Nephilim, Anunnaki, aliens, Illuminati?
They do. Sometimes you get funny comments like, oh yeah, well, they were real, they were there, like aliens in the Garden of Eden and stuff. And so there are clearly people who believe that, and they're not afraid to tell you that.
The
right?
overlords, basically.
Yeah.
That's true. And I am coming across people that are aware of it, and they don't want to fight it. They don't want to buck that archonic, demonic system.
Yeah.
Some have never been approached with the idea, and some are like, oh yeah, I don't want to know nothing. I was trying to talk to a guy in the parking lot. I'm not even necessarily talking about aliens, but just trying to initiate conversation about maybe China or prepping. I'll use those words. And those will be buzzwords where it'll get their anxiety going. And what I'm saying is we don't have to be fully anxious to be. There are spiritual people online that talk about preparing for end times, and they're very calm about it.
Yeah.
And they talk about God's role and the things that He may do. The Sufi realities guy, with the grid going out and money going away. Well, and then that being a part of the judgment that's coming.
Yeah, those are very real concerns. Even if you're not an end times believer, just understanding how the grid works, for instance, or what would happen if it went out. We've seen blackouts. In the whole Midwest area one year, a few years ago, the entire region had a blackout. So what do you do if you're?
And then right now there's a hurricane down there with a few hundred dead, and then you have the rise in the looting, people cutting wires. This stuff is very predictable to see, and it's going to keep people getting shot at, utility workers.
Infrastructure can fail or be damaged. Something can happen. So what do you do if something happens in your area where you live? How do you respond? So it's good to have a plan. It's good to have a plan for that. Yeah, I think we should all probably develop a plan for any type of major disaster that could occur in our neck of the woods.
Take a little bit longer to talk about the most important things. Other people can get their information on that, but what I was thinking about is putting together like a basic for $1,000 for those of us that are poor. Ways to prep, because I've prepped many times and I've had to move away and I've had my stuff thrown away.
There are different ways, and I'm not astute enough to talk about all of them, but one very simple way that you can prepare for, let's say, an electric grid failure. If you are out of power for an extended period of time, it's already been proven that solar power is a great alternative. And so just with a few solar panels and a battery pack, you can have an alternative energy source that will not fail you because it's natural. There's sunlight, and here in Texas especially, you're going to have a lot of sunlight. You may have a few extended days during rainy season where it's cloudy. But even then, solar panels still collect the solar energy, and the batteries still collect them and store them. So that's one way that you can prepare, and you don't have to do it all in one day. Just do a little research, find out how much capacity you can collect with 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 solar panels, and how much battery power you need to store the amount of solar energy that you need to collect to survive for, let's say, a week, and maybe you want to go longer. But that's just something very simple that you can start with. And of course, growing your own food. I mean, what happens if we're standing in a grocery store? There's a run on basic food items. So you can plant your own. You can grow your own livestock.
While we were talking, the black man in line was making punching movements. Understand, these people don't like me. These people are not. I've been standing up for black people for a long time, and I've been punched and with attempts to knock me out, like for no reason, from total strangers.
Yeah.
I know I was born into a hell realm dimension to stand up for all these people of color in my own family, and to know that my white mother is racist, to know that my dad is racist, that his whole family is racist. I know this world is more racist than they will admit if my family is hateful. These people cannot look at themselves, them people hurting themselves, selling their own women. Look at the news now, lady, I'm psychic. Like, it's horrifying to wake up in a world where, as a short brown man, around these people, I have no value, because they're brainwashed by this media to like worshiping basketball players, Diddy, all this stuff, and they think God's going to protect. No, this is moving here has been the most worst thing that's ever happened to me. And amongst these people in this grocery store is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And now I know the devil rules this city and rules this planet. If my own father doesn't even care, and he has earned blood money, we're adding this out. This is for them. Okay, now I know he can earn $200,000 a year, $100,000 a year, and be a foreigner, and people can hate Muslims. But if you like evil, you will do good in this world. You won't have anybody trying to punch you out. You try to serve God and stand up against human trafficking, you won't have any friends. I mean, this world is cruel. They don't like the Muslims, but the Muslims going up the banana boat here hate freedom, hate fighting. So I'm sorry. I'm living here. Jesus, I've asked Jesus, just help me. Help me. I go to the mall and I'm surrounded by evil. I try to find martial arts partners at the gym to hold the focus pads.
Yeah.
And so much of martial arts now is evil and boxing. And to try to get spiritual fighters together that got the knockout punch, it's very difficult. Christian men need to know how to fight without shooting a guy. That's been my message on the internet, is that Christian men are way too into the guns.
Yeah, spiritual warfare is a real thing. So, but also, the weapons of our warfare are not flesh and blood. So, I don't look at people as my enemies.
I'm resetting this. I'm resetting this. Continue. You don't look at people as your...
I don't look at people as my enemies. I don't look at people groups as my enemy. Because there are spiritual forces at work that we can't see. And it's going on all around us. We should be aware of that and know that the demon forces, the evil forces that are at work in our lives and in our communities and all around us have already been defeated at the cross. And it's not something that we can look forward to in the future. It's a reality right now. And to me, that's a great comfort.
So Jesus said, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper."
Yeah.
And so he said that because the deeper meaning of that, can people take that meaning and learn from it if they're going to follow on his path and be fearless against demonic forces? So what's that prayer go? God, grant me the serenity to, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Serenity prayer,
shall fear no evil.
Yeah. So I trust in the Lord to work out all things. That doesn't mean that I can't take action when I see evil, taking place. If I see violence in front of me, somebody raping somebody or somebody getting bullied.
How would you counsel someone having a mental health crisis and drinking themselves to sleep after watching somebody knock someone out on YouTube? Like, how would you counsel someone who's losing their shit because they're taking too much information in, and they're seeing on YouTube all these older white women getting attacked by thugs, and because I can psychically predict it because I'm gifted and these people don't see it? Like, how would you calmly keep yourself together when you're sobbing and the people are ignoring you?
Well,
and not
I'm
drink,
a-
because
yeah.
drinking seems to be like you got to drink to stop the thinking to get to sleep, because
Yeah,
now
drinking rarely solves problems.
Right.
So,
I didn't drink last night, but last night I saw a video of a girl who was attacked by a group of 30, and it was and I watched it, reshared it, but it didn't go off. But I have a history now of going off on these videos.
Yeah.
Whether I'm, and
you know,
not everybody can handle that. They just need to see the news. And so how would someone be able to be a reporter and look at that without becoming PTSD from it? If you don't know the answer, that's fine. But I'm
not a professional, so
I'm not using all this.
I don't think I can speak to that question.
So it's prayer. We've been asked God or Jesus to take away the feelings of emotion, the anger.
There are strong emotions, and people can have strong emotions, and yeah, I've experienced those in my life. But I have learned to take those and give them to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Because another guy I watch online, he talks about the devil side, trying to get everybody angry, like even over like being very self-righteous, and just burning with anger. And then I can see how the devil can really infiltrate spiritual communities with that anger, to where they become very, and we're talking about all over the world, India, Middle East, here.
Oh yeah, and he uses the economic systems to oppress people, and you know, the important thing is just being really aware of those things taking place around you, and not focus on so much on, well, those people are our enemies, you know, those people are causing this, we got to fix that. If you can affect that in some way, in a positive way, that's great. You know, there are evil organizations that work in our world that do oppress peoples and communities, and if you have a way to influence them in the positive, so that you can take off the weight of that oppression, that's a good thing. Not everybody's in that position, so what do? You remain in control and influence where you can, and how you can, where you're at.
Talk about the Bluetooth mind control. It is like the microchip. What I've been saying is, it's like taking the chip, you put the Bluetooth in, and the frequency surrounds the head aura, and then weakens it to where it can be penetrated by the unseen realms. In Christianity, they're called demons. In Islam, they're called the jinn, and the Gnostics called them archons, and the East Indians called them asuras. Bunch of people that came before us can't be wrong. Maybe it's our system making the robots wrong. So, like, are you thinking that that's a similar, that there's a health, mental, spiritual concern with them?
There may be.
They're definitely not safe if they can't hear a predator coming up to them. I don't know the
science behind it, but yeah.
If the girl's wearing booty shorts,
the whole world out, you know, when you have these in your ears and you're not tuned in to what's going on around you. Ray Bradbury wrote a novel called Fahrenheit 451. The inspiration behind that was he saw somebody walking down the street with a
that's
Walkman.
A good book.
Yeah, it is a great book. He saw someone walking down the street with a Walkman up to his ear, and essentially the idea that he had was, well, people
oh, you're fine. Thank you.
People don't read books anymore. This is back in the 50s and 60s, right? And so people don't read music. People aren't going to read books. So he got the idea from this Fahrenheit 451.
And then Ray Bradbury's The Pedestrian. It's a 5-minute read. They teach that to fourth grade reading level. It's about a robot following a guy who's walking at night. Going, why aren't you inside watching the TV sets? And it was the 1950s.
Great story.
Yeah, and then So I'm gonna get ready to leave. But what is your commentary then on the difficulty? Because you're happily married, but for those of us, I've shared with you.